Hello and welcome to Booktube is killing my reading. And no, this is not a rant type video. It isn't even a negative video. It's about having to reset priorities and focus on my personal reading versus hopping into a bunch of things and watching my reading go completely off track. Now, this year I did the beefcake tag earlier, and I just did an update video on that. That update is what's generated this video. As you can see, I now have 2 of the books read that I had planned, but I'm still far behind because here we are just days away from July. Part of what threw me off kilter, last year I had my themes and was trying to focus on that, both with the channel and my personal reading. But I'm very much a mood reader. And so even something like this was a bit of a challenge to stick with. So for this year, it's just mainly the UFO and conspiracies, August to September, that I've been really kind of trying to stay with, meaning I have to get some of those books aside for July as well, so that I'm ready to do something with it in August and September. Of course, ghosts, vampires, and the paranormal. I have them listed on here for October, November, but I read them all year long. I've just put up my Don't Die July announcement video, so of course there's going to be ghost stories and the paranormal with that as well. So how did things get off the rails this year? Well, it actually started in December of last year. And if you've been here for a while, you've heard me mention A Court of Thorn and Roses. I ended up picking this up because the holds at the library are quite lengthy. Everyone seems to be reading this series lately, and I wanted to read it because Ven and I have this running joke between he loves The Alchemist and he also loves Feyre. So I decided in order to chat with him about Feyre, I really needed to read the book and understand what the story was about. That was the only book I planned to read in the series. But as I've also mentioned, and this is where Noah comes in, during a live stream for giggles, Noah was asked by a viewer who would he name different people from the ACOTAR series. Now, at that point, Noah had just read A Court of Thorn and Roses. He hadn't read the rest of the series yet. And he said I reminded him of Nesta. Now, we don't really learn much about her in the first book. And I decided, well, if he's going to compare me to Nesta, I need to find out who this character is and what's she all about. And so in January, I ended up reading these 2 chunky monkeys, A Court of Mist and Fury and A Court of Wings and Ruin. I also read A Court of Frost and Starlight, the novella. And again, I had to finish these quickly because at that time I didn't own my own copies and I borrowed them from the library. I knew I wouldn't be able to renew them because, as I say, there's a long waiting list for these books. So I knocked those off in January instead of getting to the other reading that I had planned. And yes, that is my own fault because I needed to know about Nesta. Unfortunately, between these 2 books and the novella, we don't really learn much about Nesta. There's a few things, and she's got some issues, but we don't learn a lot about her, which is why I kept going with the series. I've mentioned before, when I got to, I'm pretty sure it was Mist and Fury, there was a section I totally did not expect to throw me completely into a whirlwind, old memories, and it was a very long week with nightmares and reliving crap I hadn't thought of in over 50 years. And it completely hit me unaware. But I do believe we read things when we need to read them, and things are good now. You know, I've revisited that situation. I've done a lot of personal work over the decades to get to where I am now. And yeah, it threw me for a loop. Like I say, this wasn't a series on my radar. It certainly wasn't on my beefcake list. But there I was chugging through them. And I'll explain in a minute, yes, why I do have my own copies now. So, in order to find out about Nesta, yes, there was one more chunky monkey to go, A Court of Silver Flames. And this is pretty much about Nesta and Cassian. So, it's a different perspective. We learn so much more about Nesta and Cassian and some of the other side characters. My copy has 751 pages. So with the series, each book seems to be getting bigger. And just to be clear, Noah, no, I am not reading any more Sarah J. Maas as in her other series. But the irony to all of this is a conversation with Hermie, the book hermit, and I will be chatting with her on my live stream, or I probably already had that chat, about ACOTAR and Fourth Wing. Hermie, like me, originally didn't enjoy Fourth Wing, but then she got involved in a group read and she found out the second time around she really did enjoy it more. She loved the ACOTAR series. Noah is almost finished now. Ven is still dragging his heels. So as we were having a virtual tea and a chat about this series and other things, we decided we're going to do a group read starting in September. So it will be one book a month and a conversation about the characters. And since I'm not going to get blindsided this time going through it, that book isn't going to be an issue this time. And I do think that going through it with a group will make it a different reading experience. So I'm not going to say I'm ever going to love or rave about the ACOTAR series, partly because I don't typically read spicy romance, and this is pretty tame compared to some of the other spice out there. But there certainly is a lot to the series, and I think even more to it as I get to have conversations with others who enjoy the books. So I'm not sure when I'm going to be putting out some of the summaries of the books. It may be after September when we've started going through the reads. I do have my notes from when I originally went through them, so I may end up just doing a 5-week series on ACOTAR, just summarizing each of the books and my experience reading them the first time through. Now, these are the chunky monkeys that I did have planned on my beefcake list and are still waiting. I can't really blame Booktube. It's my own choices. I've also started reading some of the Dresden files that I've heard about on other channels, and I lucked into finding 10 of those at my local thrift store. So part of it's Booktube because the different books I want to read and I'm hearing people talk about. I'd also read Fourth Wing, and that was not a thin book either, but I stopped at one. Then, bless his heart, read the next two and gave me summaries. So that was a good thing. So sometimes Booktube can be helpful as well. So the books that I still haven't got to, Dune, has been waiting for 3 years. I'm not sure if it's going to continue to wait. It might end up waiting a bit longer because the print is small. I don't remember it being this big the first time I read it, so I don't know if they've pulled a Stephen King and just added a bunch of stuff to it. I also have the next 2 books in the series because I bought this as a 3-book box set. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, I am happy to say the book that I did finish off my list is the Da Vinci Code because I've been starting that spiral again. So yay to one off the list. I've also started Fingerprints of the Gods by Graham Hancock again. I'm not very far in. For me, this is a relatively quick read. It's only the second time I've read this, but the other thing with this book is there are several sections with photos, which is nice. There's lots of diagrams throughout it, which are helpful about the areas he's talking about and his different theories. So there is at least another beefcake book that I've started. Once I finish that, and that may or may not be this week, we'll see how things go, then I'll be moving on to Magicians of the Gods, and this is by, again, Graham Hancock. I've never read this before, and I really lucked out finding it at my local thrift store, because Hancock's work is not something you typically find there. Again, this has photos throughout. These are colored photos. It's a later book by him. This was published in 2015. Fingerprints, which I believe I read not long after it came out, is 1995. So I'm very curious to see what his different theories are. I'm enjoying reading Fingerprints again because I have read one of the books by Charles Hapgood. I would like to get another one of Hapgood's books, and it's, again, stuff that I'm familiar with because I've been reading about it for decades. It's only because of Booktube that I've really gotten back into reading fiction again. There was quite a stretch of time that I really wasn't reading fiction, maybe 3-4 fictional books a year compared to all the nonfiction that I've read. And just to give you an idea, this is one set of cubes. There are 4 at the bottom you can't really see. There are no fictional books anywhere on that set of cubes. The cubes beside me, there's 4 of them there, same thing. There's a couple of horror stories, but the vast majority are nonfiction. And the bookcase here that has 3 shelves and filled with books are, again, all nonfiction. The top has to do with my pagan studies, the middle has to do with the Bible studies, and the bottom has to do with various healing modalities, either Reiki, theta healing, crystals, chakras, all that type of thing, and energy work. So in this room, other than the books you've seen me show on camera, I don't have any cubes dedicated to fiction here. These are all my interests and my nonfiction spiral type books. So again, if not for Booktube, I wouldn't have read near the amount of fiction that I had. I mean, I'm glad that I revisited Michael McDowell. His work art is horror. I've enjoyed reading Nicole Brona's books, The Midnight Detective Agency. I've discovered Margaret Pinard and her historical fiction. I'll be moving on to book 2 of her Remnants trilogy. So it's not a bad thing. Also, Talendor's Guest by Charles McGarry. I've enjoyed all of those works, and if not for Booktube, I wouldn't have found them. Brown Yelp Gang by Gareth Howells. That was a hilarious read, and every time I picked up that book, I could hear Spaceship Superstar by Prism. It just, you're out there, there's different planets, there's different beings. I'm a big Star Trek, Star Wars fan. There were a lot of things throughout Gareth's book that reminded me of things from the past. Our enjoyment of Farscape, he's also a big fan, and I loved the character of Zan, and one of the characters in Brown Yelp has Zan qualities to her. So it isn't that Booktube has killed my reading in a bad way. It's just throwing my planned reading off the rails. 2 other big books I need to get moving on. Drawing Down the Moon by Margot Adler. That ties in with my major pagan studies, and that all ties in with the Da Vinci Spiral. So all of these reads are interconnected. And the one that I also had, another one that I had planned, The Book of Signs. This is by Dr. David Jeremiah. I'm just curious what he has to say. I mean, I've read stuff by David Wilcox. I'll talk about that when I finally get around to finishing his second book, because yeah, there's some stuff way out there, and I don't just mean space. But like I said, I'll talk more when I get into reviewing those books. I'm curious about this individual because he's got 31 undeniable prophecies of the apocalypse. Now, I find that type of thing interesting. Now, for me, that sets off alarm bells. Having read Fingerprints of the Gods, a number of other works about Machu Picchu and other sites in South America, Central America, and Mexico, and of course what happened when the Spanish showed up, and because of their prophecy related to Quetzalcoatl or Viracocha, depending on which part of the continent you were hearing the legend from, they were expecting that this individual was at some point going to return. And so when the Spanish showed up, and they were Caucasian with beards, sadly, the Mayans and the Aztecs and the Incas figured this was the individual from prophecy, and that was a big part of how so much of their civilization was destroyed and decimated. So to me, prophecies can lead to some very bad things. And that's why I am curious to find out what 31 things this individual seems to think are undeniable prophecies of the apocalypse. Hopefully, I will get to finishing more of the books from my beefcake tag before December. More of my reading is coming back on track, and I'm not getting swayed as much as I had been earlier in the year. But part of that as well was my own choosing. Like I say, no one forced me to read more than one book of ACOTAR. And yes, I plowed through them quickly because I had to get them back to the library. I'm actually really looking forward to doing the group read and hearing different thoughts as we read through those books. This year, I'm also doing the Vampire Chronicles. Some of the books are a first-time read, many are rereading, and I'm doing that with Kat, Alan, Stuart, and Leslie. I'm really looking forward to our discussions about those books. In January, along with Ven and Hermie and Didi and Noah. For Ven and I, it's a reread of the Wheel of Time series. For others, it's a first-time read. We haven't really been progressing very quickly with that because there have been some major life events. There's a number of other books that people are getting to, and everyone has some big books that they want to get to and other reading events that they're involved in. So we're still coming up to book 2 in that, even though we're almost into July. And that's okay. It's a low pressure, no stress type of read. I need to finish my notes on the first 2 books anyhow, and I want to put together a journal with that. Same with the Vampire Chronicles. So there's a lot of spin-off things. There are different reading events that I'm involved in. And sometimes I find those a bit of a challenge as well, because I get excited about wanting to read the books, but I want to read them now. I don't want to wait 4, 5, or 6 months down the road. So again, like I say, this isn't a rant or a problem with Booktube. I just need to get myself focused and organized. I need to stop just starting books and not finishing them. And finally, in the last few weeks, I've been making progress on that. So I'm still trying to finish off my books from 2024. I've got the Beefcake books that I want to read. I'm starting to get things organized for the Da Vinci spiral, as in figuring out the number of books that I have and getting all those notes, the timelines, the people, all of that together. There are some other books that I want to finish reading about climate and the environment. So I just need to get myself focused. The nice thing is, since I've figured out that I can record a video and schedule it to go up, there's less pressure about making content for the channel. So on my good days, when I have my notes ready and I gather up my books, I'll make several videos at once and then plan when to put them up. Sometimes that doesn't work to my advantage because I'll be a week or a week and a half ahead. Then I just get busy doing other stuff, and then suddenly I realize, oh crap, I didn't make extra new content. So again, that's a me, not a Booktube thing. And as more and more things come together and stabilize a bit, that should all improve. And I just want to review over my notes to make sure I've covered everything. Twilight is one book that I certainly never thought I would own. And yes, I did find it at my thrift store, so it's all good. So for $4.50, I can handle one sparkly vampire. No, I'm not reading the whole series. But if I am going to talk about vampires and get into different books and discussions, because I want to talk about Dracula, Carmilla, Edward, and a number of others, I actually have to read the book to point out why sparkly vampires irritate me. But even so, just like ACOTAR, just like Fourth Wing, there are some important and good things to this story. And it's great that authors write such a variety and people can find what they enjoy. And yes, This is also a bigger book. And I think the size of this and all the other books I have shown explains why I enjoy H.G. Wells, Robert Heinlein, Jules Verne, Carmilla, Dracula, because they are all small, manageable books that you can read in a few days. These books are, to me, intimidating, and I don't even have a challenge with reading, but I'm looking at the size of these going, holy crikey. So, yeah, I'm not sure when big chunky monkey books became a thing. I remember Harry Potter was huge, and I mean, kids were just devouring it. They enjoyed reading it, and same with the Divergent series, although those are big print and a relatively quick read. It's just the books are big. But some of these others, like the Wheel of Time series, the print isn't big and the books vary between 600 to 900 pages each. So now another thing that I do need to put into place is the TBR book suggestions. And I need to have this near me when I'm watching YouTube videos, because there are a lot of great suggestions for books, new authors to check out. But if I don't save the video, and not everyone writes the titles of the books they've mentioned in the description box, so you have to watch the video again. Sadly, I've done that sometimes as well, and I need to get back into the habit of including the titles and the authors that I've mentioned so that people can just go to the description box and look for those books. A few more things that I need to get better at and more organized with. Yes, the view keeps changing behind me as I have a few more things coming together. I now have a box set up for my Hoax or Holy Grail series, and that will be where the different subjects and those files go. I need to get my box set up for the Da Vinci Spiral, because that's certainly going to take up quite a bit of information and organization. It's all coming together. It's just taking some time. It's me setting priorities, so it's a me thing, not a Booktube thing. I'm very grateful to Booktube, because not only have I made amazing friends and awesome connections, both with fellow content creators and viewers that I very much appreciate. I have my caring tree that has a number of wonderful individuals listed on there. So there was that amazing spin-off that came from being part of Booktube. I've discovered some new authors I wouldn't have read or tried otherwise. And I also have to remember that just because I've read a book doesn't mean I have to make a video about it and talk about it. I mean, I do enjoy talking about the various subjects and books that I read, but I don't have to pump out content for every single book that I've read. I can read books just for me. And I need to remind myself about that. And if I want to read a certain book, but an event that it ties to isn't for a few months, that's okay. I can either decide to read it again during that event, or I can just enjoy reading it and find something else if I want to participate in the event. And remember, Booktube is for fun. It's a hobby. There are plenty of books that I can talk about, but I don't have to talk about every single book that I've read. And once I get that worked out, and I don't keep getting pulled off in too many different directions, so I need to keep track of what I've committed to, what do I have time for, along with all the other things that I want to get done in a day, because there's a number of other craft projects and things, Right now, it's yard work and getting outdoors when I can, when the weather's good, or I'm not overly achy, and so I can get out and enjoy doing the work. If you're still here, let me know with the thumbs up or a little smiley face. Also, let me know in the comments down below. Do you find that watching a lot of Booktube videos, sometimes your own reading plans get pushed off to the side and you find yourself jumping into events and readathons because they're fun, it's enjoyable, it's great to connect with other people, but then you suddenly realize your own reading and what you wanted to get to is still sitting there and waiting. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like I say, I believe the books we need to read arrive when we need to read them, when we can either have amazing discussions with other individuals about them, or there's information that we need for our personal growth and well-being. Until next time, be safe, be well, and big hugs.